Ikigai Part 1: The Art of Living and a Mysterious Word. In a quiet corner of the world, far away from the noise of modern life, people live longer, smile more, and carry a peaceful glow in their eyes. No rush, no noise, just flow. They live with something the rest of the world is still searching for. They live with Ikigai. The Japanese island of Okinawa is not famous for tall buildings or flashy technology. It's known for something far more powerful: its people. Many of them live well beyond 100 years, not only surviving but thriving. They garden, they cook, they dance, they teach, they wake up each day with a sense of purpose, no matter their age. That's where the journey of this book begins, searching for the secret behind these long, happy lives. And what the authors discovered was a concept so deep, so gentle, and yet so life-changing that it cannot be easily translated. The Japanese call it Ikigai. Iki means life, means value or worth. Put together, Ikigai means your reason for being. It's not just about goals, careers, or money. It's about that deep feeling inside when your life feels meaningful. When you do something and feel, this is why I exist. But here's the beauty. Your Ikigai doesn't have to be something huge. It could be as simple as cooking for your family, helping a neighbor, writing stories, growing flowers. It's personal, quiet, often invisible to others, but deeply powerful for you. In modern life, many of us wake up with anxiety, deadlines, pressure, overthinking. But imagine waking up like the people of Okinawa do, not with stress, but with joy, with clarity, with a sense of purpose so calm, so natural, that it doesn't feel like effort. It feels like breathing. The authors, Héctor García and Francesc Miralles, went to the village of Ojimi, home to the highest number of centenarians in the world. There, they didn't find secrets locked behind science or hidden diets. They found elders who smiled often, worked in their gardens, danced with neighbors, and stayed active, not in gyms, but in life. What's most surprising is that these people never really retire. Not because they are forced to keep working, but because they love what they do. They have purpose. Whether it's teaching, cooking, or simply keeping a tradition alive, they all have their own Ikigai. One elder told the authors, "I wake up at 6 every morning to feed my animals. I don't have to. I want to." Another said, "I've played the shamisen for 70 years. I still play for the children in the village. That's what keeps me young." This is what Ikigai is. Not something you chase, not something you buy. It's something you discover within yourself. The authors also noticed something else. These people didn't live fast. They lived deeply. No rushing, no multitasking. Just full presence in whatever they did. Cooking, walking, playing, working. Everything was done with care, with mindfulness, with joy. The modern world often pushes us into stress. We're told to be fast, productive, always available. But this chapter reminds us that a slower life is not a wasted life. In fact, it may be the most meaningful kind. The word Ikigai itself has no direct English translation. It isn't just happiness. It isn't just passion. It's the balance between what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Where all four connect lies your Ikigai. Some people find it in teaching, others in writing, some in building, others in helping. There's no one answer, no one path. And that's the point. Ikigai is yours to discover. But how do you find it? This first part of the book gently guides us to stop rushing and start listening. It asks us to reflect, to observe, to remember. Because many times, your Ikigai was there in your childhood. The moments you were fully alive, painting, dancing, exploring, storytelling. But as we grow up, we push those things aside for real life. And in doing so, we often lose the very thing that gave us meaning. Finding your Ikigai isn't about quitting your job or making sudden changes. It's about reconnecting with what truly lights you up. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be small, it can be quiet, but it has to feel right. Another idea explored in this part is flow. That feeling when you're so absorbed in what you're doing, you lose track of time. It could be writing, cooking, fixing something, painting, or even cleaning. That state of flow is a powerful indicator. It shows you're aligned with something meaningful. The Okinawan elders live in flow, not through technology, but through simple activities they love. That's why they never feel tired. They're energized, engaged, alive. They also stay connected. Community is vital to Ikigai. No one lives isolated. They share meals, celebrations, and even sorrow together. They belong. and belonging gives life deeper purpose. So if you're lost or overwhelmed, this chapter doesn't tell you to fix your life overnight. It tells you to slow down, reflect, breathe. Ask simple questions. What do I enjoy doing? When do I feel most alive? What comes naturally to me? How can I serve others through what I love? Even if the answer is small, that's okay. That's where it begins. Ikigai is not a destination. It's a way of being, a gentle way, a mindful way, a joyful way. Ikigai Part 2, The Origins of Ikigai. Long before the word Ikigai became a global curiosity, long before it appeared on book covers or was spoken in wellness circles, it quietly lived in the hearts of the Japanese people, woven into their language, their culture, and their daily rituals. In this chapter, the authors take us deep into the roots of Ikigai, tracing its quiet footsteps through Japanese history and philosophy. And as we follow those steps, we begin to see that this concept is not just a modern self-help idea. It is an ancient way of life. Ikigai isn't found in loud ambition or grand dreams. Its origin is much softer, much older, and much more natural. The word first appeared in Japanese literature more than 1,000 years ago during the Heian period. Even then, it reflected something subtle, something deep. In those ancient times, life was closely connected to nature, to the rhythms of seasons, to rituals, to family, to craft. People didn't separate work from meaning. Every task, however small, was done with intention. The idea of Ikigai evolved slowly, influenced by three powerful philosophies: Buddhism, Shintoism, and Confucianism. From Buddhism came the belief that suffering is part of life, but so is awareness, and that true peace is found within. The idea of letting go of attachment and embracing the present moment echoes through the teachings of Ikigai. From Shintoism, the ancient Japanese spiritual tradition, came the deep respect for nature, ancestors, and all living things. Everything has spirit: trees, rivers, stones, even tools. This teaches gratitude, humility, and a connection to something bigger than oneself. From Confucianism came discipline, duty, and the importance of contributing to the harmony of society. Every role matters. Every person is responsible for making life better, for themselves and for others. These ideas merged slowly and beautifully into the lifestyle we now call Ikigai. The authors explain that Ikigai was never taught in schools. It was never written in laws. Instead, it was lived, passed on through family stories, community traditions, and the way elders spoke about life. A grandmother teaching her granddaughter how to knead rice dough, a fisherman passing down his boat to his son, a monk sweeping temple steps before sunrise. These are not just routines. They are expressions of Ikigai, living with purpose, doing something well, and doing it with your heart. The authors also draw our attention to a powerful concept. In the West, we often think of retirement as the finish line, a goal, a time to finally rest. But in Okinawa and across much of Japan, the word retirement barely exists in traditional vocabulary. Why? Because when you live with Ikigai, you don't feel the need to stop working. You don't feel burned out or fed up. Your work is not something to escape from. It is part of your identity, your joy, your rhythm. This doesn't mean people work endlessly at stressful jobs. It means they keep doing what gives their life meaning, whether that's painting, gardening, teaching, or helping in the community. In Ojimi, the village of longevity, many elders still work in their fields or cook for neighbors, even at the age of 90 or 100. They do it not out of obligation, but because it makes them feel alive. The roots of Ikigai also connect with another idea, the Japanese term moai. A moai is a small social group formed early in life that lasts a lifetime. It's like a second family. People in a moai support each other emotionally, financially, and spiritually. They share joys, solve problems together, and never let each other feel alone. This sense of belonging creates emotional security, a vital ingredient in a long and peaceful life. The authors explain that Ikigai thrives in connection. You are not just living for yourself, you're living with others. Your purpose is not only personal, it's social. You matter to your community. You are seen, valued, and needed. As we reflect on these origins, we begin to understand why so many people in Okinawa live long, happy lives. It's not just their food. It's not just their movement. It's their mindset, their rhythm, their roots. They don't rush. They don't hoard. They don't isolate. They live gently, with meaning and mindfulness, connected to their ancestors, to nature, to purpose. The authors remind us that the origins of Ikigai are not found in books or charts, but in the eyes of the elders who have lived it, in the slow hands of a grandmother preparing tea, in the weathered fingers of a craftsman shaping wood, in the stories passed down over generations. Ikigai was never meant to be a theory. It was always a practice, a lifestyle. And now, that ancient practice is being rediscovered by the modern world, one quiet step at a time. Ikigai Part 3, Anti-Aging Secrets, Little Things That Add Up to a Long and Happy Life. In a world obsessed with anti-aging creams, supplements, and surgical shortcuts, there exists a quiet truth, a truth not found in products, but in the way we live. In Okinawa, people don't fear aging. They embrace it, like the turning of the seasons, like the blooming of cherry blossoms. It is not something to fight, but something to understand. In this chapter, the authors shift focus from philosophy to practice. They ask, what do these long-living people actually do? What are the daily choices that quietly extend life and fill it with joy? The answers are surprisingly simple. They begin with movement, but not in the way we think. In the West, we often associate exercise with gyms, machines, sweat, and structure. But in Okinawa, movement is natural, gentle, and continuous. They walk often and everywhere. They garden, not as a chore, but as a joyful rhythm. They stretch, dance, clean their homes, sweep temple paths. Every action is a flow of life, not a break from it. There's a famous Okinawan saying, only staying active will make you want to live 100 years. And it's true. When the body moves, the mind clears. When the body rests too long, the spirit begins to shrink. But movement is just one layer. The next is nutrition. The elders of Ojimi don't eat to fill their stomachs. They eat to nourish their life. Their meals are small, colorful, fresh, and varied. They follow the ancient practice of Hara Hachi, a Confucian teaching that says, eat until you are 80% full. Not stuffed, not bloated, just satisfied. This single practice alone reduces inflammation, improves digestion, and supports longevity. They eat more plants than meat, vegetables, tofu, sweet potatoes, seaweed, miso. Meat and fish are used sparingly, almost like a garnish. Sugar is rare, fast food is unheard of. But more than what they eat, it's how they eat. They eat slowly, mindfully, often with others. There's no rush, no distractions, just the act of eating with gratitude. Many meals begin with a silent bow, a phrase spoken with reverence. Itadakimasu, I humbly receive. This small moment transforms food from fuel into connection with the earth, with the cook, with one another. The chapter also explores the power of low stress. The authors explain that stress is one of the most silent killers in the modern world. It destroys the immune system, shortens telomeres, accelerates aging. But in Okinawa, the pace of life is different. No one rushes. Time moves with the sun, not with the clock. There is no obsession with productivity. Instead, there is purpose. And where there is purpose, there is peace. They also build strong emotional resilience. They don't bottle emotions, they express them gently. They don't isolate, they gather. Whether in joy or sorrow, they stay connected. The chapter highlights that social bonds are more powerful than we realize. In Ojimi, everyone belongs to a moai, a group of lifelong friends who support each other through everything. If one falls ill, the others cook meals. If one faces loss, the others come to sit and share silence. This emotional safety net lowers anxiety, lifts spirits, and keeps hearts strong, even in old age. The authors also point out something fascinating. In many parts of the world, aging is seen as a decline. But in Okinawa, aging is seen as an expansion. As people grow older, they are respected more. They are consulted for wisdom. They are asked to teach, to guide, to bless. This feeling that you are still needed, still valued, still part of something greater than yourself, adds years to your life. There's another habit worth noticing: gratitude. The elders of Okinawa practice daily gratitude, not through rituals, but through mindset. They give thanks for the food, for their families, for the weather, even for hardships. Because they believe every challenge is a teacher, and every moment is a gift. This attitude reshapes the brain. It creates optimism, strengthens immunity, and promotes emotional health. The authors gently remind us, we don't need expensive tools to slow aging. We need rhythm, we need peace, we need people, we need purpose. A long life is not the result of one big thing. It's the result of many small things repeated daily, with love. As the chapter closes, one 102-year-old woman says, "I wake up every morning and water my plants. They give me something to care for, and in return, I stay alive." That is the quiet miracle of Ikigai. Not magic, not mystery, but mindful, intentional living. Moment by moment, breath by breath. Ikigai, Part 4, Finding Flow in Everything You Do. Imagine being so deeply focused in what you're doing that the world around you fades away. Time disappears. You're not tired, you're not distracted, you're just present. This isn't fantasy, it's called flow. And in this chapter, the authors show us how flow is one of the key elements of Ikigai, a state where passion, purpose, and presence merge into one. Flow is when an artist forgets to eat because they're lost in a painting, when a writer types for hours unaware of the clock, when a gardener plants under the sun with no thought except the soil in their hands. Flow is not a luxury for the gifted. It's a natural human experience, and anyone can access it. The concept of flow was made famous by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who spent his life studying happiness and discovered this truth. We feel most alive not when we're relaxing or escaping, but when we're immersed, fully engaged in something that challenges us just enough to stretch our skills, but not so much that we feel overwhelmed. The Okinawan elders live in a state of natural flow. They don't chase productivity. They don't force effort. But every day, they do something that absorbs their attention completely, tending to their gardens, practicing crafts, preparing traditional food, fixing tools, or playing music. These aren't distractions. They are expressions of purpose, and through them, they enter flow. The authors explain that people who regularly enter flow states experience less anxiety, better emotional control, and even longer lifespans. Why? Because the mind stops spinning. Worry disappears. You stop living in the past or future. You come home to the present moment. Flow is more than focus. It's a kind of joyful surrender. But there's a key condition. You must choose tasks that are meaningful to you. You see, flow doesn't come from scrolling through a screen or multitasking through emails. It comes from craft, effort, and attention. It's that moment when you build something, create something, shape something with your hands or your mind or your heart. And suddenly, you become part of it. The chapter gives us practical guidance on how to enter flow. First, choose tasks that matter to you, not because they're trendy or profitable, but because they feel right. Second, eliminate distractions. Turn off notifications. Step away from noise. Flow requires focus, uninterrupted, undivided attention. Third, find the sweet spot between boredom and stress. If a task is too easy, you'll drift. If it's too hard, you'll panic. But if it stretches you just enough, you'll rise to meet it. That's where flow lives, in the space between comfort and challenge. The authors also show that people who regularly enter flow are not just happier, they're more resilient. Because when you're in flow, your ego fades. You stop overthinking. You forget yourself, and in that forgetting, you reconnect with something greater. This applies to all walks of life. A chef in Okinawa enters flow while slicing vegetables with precision. A fisherman feels it as he reads the ocean's movement. A calligrapher becomes one with the brush. A grandmother braiding straw for sandals becomes completely absorbed, one loop, one thread at a time. These moments, small as they seem, are sacred because they pull us into now, and now is where life actually happens. Flow also teaches us patience. In a world chasing speed and shortcuts, flow asks us to slow down, to do one thing with full presence, to treat every task, no matter how ordinary, as a chance to come alive. Even something like cleaning can be a flow activity if done with love, even folding laundry, even making tea, because it's not about the task, it's about how we enter it. This mindset is deeply rooted in Japanese culture. There's a word, shokunin, which refers to someone who devotes their life to mastery of a craft, not for fame, not for money, but for the joy of doing something well. Whether it's carving wood, sharpening knives, or shaping pottery, shokunin treat their work as sacred. Each detail is honored, each movement refined, and through this they find peace. In the West, we chase results. In Japan, they cherish the process. This chapter reminds us that our attention is a gift, and wherever we place it becomes our experience of life. So the next time you cook, write, fix, paint, or walk, try entering it fully. Don't rush. Don't judge. Just be there. That is flow. That is presence. That is the heartbeat of Ikigai. Ikigai Part 5. Masters of Longevity, Words of Wisdom from the Longest Living People in the World. What if the secret to life wasn't hidden in books, science labs, or digital screens, but in the stories of those who have already lived it? What if the answers we search for are quietly resting in the wrinkles and wisdom of those who've reached 100 and beyond? In this chapter, the authors turn their focus to the true masters of longevity, the people of Ojimi, a village on the northern tip of Okinawa, a place where age is not feared, but celebrated, where turning 90 is seen as a milestone, not a limitation, where 100 is not a miracle, but a common story. And so the authors did something beautifully simple. They sat down with these centenarians, listened, asked questions, and absorbed the quiet brilliance of how they live. These are not philosophers or scientists. They're farmers, gardeners, fishermen, mothers, artists. But each one holds something more valuable than theory: experience. One woman, aged 102, shared, "I rise with the sun. I don't worry too much. I drink tea, tend my plants, and talk with my friends every day. That's enough." No complex strategy, no special formula, just a life filled with rhythm, simplicity, and connection. Another man, 105 years old, said, "My secret? I don't get angry. I stay busy. I smile, and I always have something to do tomorrow." There it is again, Ikigai, a reason to wake up, a thread that pulls them gently forward. The interviews reveal a pattern, certain mindsets, behaviors, and habits that show up again and again, and each one carries deep meaning. First, they stay active, not through workouts, but through daily tasks. They garden, they cook, they sweep, not because they have to, but because it gives them purpose. Second, they stay connected. They laugh a lot, they sing, they dance, they tell stories. They gather in circles to talk, to play traditional instruments, to share tea. Loneliness, so common in modern life, is almost non-existent in Ojimi, because here, you belong from beginning to end. Third, they have a deep sense of calm. They've lived through war, loss, storms, and struggle, but they do not carry bitterness. They carry grace. They accept the flow of life, trusting that every season has its role. One elder, who had outlived 3 of his children, said softly, "I plant flowers for them. I speak to them every morning. I don't cry anymore. I smile because I had them." That is resilience. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning in spite of it. Fourth, they have curiosity, even at 100. They try new things. They stay mentally active. They learn songs, crafts, jokes. They ask questions. They keep their minds open and playful, like children. And finally, they don't rush. Time moves differently here. Nobody is trying to dominate the clock. They live with the sun, with the weather, with the season. One woman said, "I've never been in a hurry. I do one thing at a time, with care. Then I rest." It's not laziness, it's presence. The chapter teaches us that these elders are not chasing life, they are living it, one breath, one step, one task at a time. They don't fear death because they've honored life. They don't count years, they count moments. And those moments, shared in gardens, kitchens, village squares, have become their medicine, their laughter, their stories, their slow walks to the temple. These are the real secrets of a long and meaningful life. The authors also point out something striking. None of the centenarians interviewed ever spoke about success the way we define it. Not once did they mention money, fame, or achievements. Instead, they spoke of people, of seasons, of routines, of smiles, of mornings, of peace. That's what lasts, that's what matters, and that's the essence of Ikigai. Ikigai, Part 6, Food for a Long Life. In a world where food is often a source of stress, obsession, or indulgence, the people of Okinawa remind us that eating can be something else entirely. A ritual, a rhythm, a quiet celebration of life. In this chapter, the authors explore one of the most practical yet powerful aspects of Ikigai: what we eat, and more importantly, how we eat. The elders of Okinawa don't count calories. They don't follow strict diets. They've never heard of keto, intermittent fasting, or protein macros. And yet, they live longer than anyone on Earth. How? Because they eat simply, mindfully, and with deep respect for their food. Let's begin with what's on their plates. The foundation of their diet is plant-based, vegetables, tofu, sweet potatoes, seaweed, miso, and green tea. They eat fish in small amounts. Meat is rare, used occasionally, more for flavor than quantity. In fact, the average Okinawan eats less than half the sugar and a third of the salt that people in other parts of Japan consume. But the real magic lies in a quiet practice passed down through generations, known as Hara, Hachi, Bu. It's a simple saying spoken before meals. Hara, Hachi, Bu. Eat until you're 80% full, not 100%, not stuffed, just satisfied. This practice, rooted in Confucian philosophy, teaches restraint without restriction. It reminds us to pause, to listen to our body, to stop eating before we feel full, and allow our hunger to soften, not disappear completely. It's not just about digestion, it's about awareness. When you eat until 80%, your body has space to function without overload. You reduce the risk of disease. You stay lighter, more energetic, more in tune with nature. Science now confirms what Okinawans have known for centuries. Eating less leads to living longer. Caloric restriction, when done mindfully, improves cell repair, reduces inflammation, and protects the body from age-related decline. But the elders of Okinawa never called it caloric restriction. To them, it's just life. It's the way their grandparents ate, and their grandparents before them. Another powerful aspect of their eating habit is variety. They don't eat the same meal every day. They include more than 30 different plant-based foods per week: root vegetables, leafy greens, legumes, sea vegetables, and herbs. One of their staples is the purple sweet potato, a food rich in antioxidants, fiber, and flavor. They also consume goya, a bitter melon known to regulate blood sugar and cleanse the body. Fermented foods like miso and tofu support gut health and immunity. Herbs like turmeric and ginger are used regularly, not as medicine, but as flavor. It's not about superfoods. It's about natural, whole ingredients, close to the earth, far from factories. Meals are also light and small, but eaten regularly. Rather than large, heavy dinners, Okinawans prefer lighter meals spread throughout the day, keeping blood sugar stable and digestion smooth. But it's not just what's on the table, it's how they approach the meal itself. There's no rushing, no screens, no multitasking. They sit together, they eat slowly, they chew thoroughly, they talk, they laugh, they express gratitude. Before every meal, they say, "Itadakimasu," I humbly receive, and after the meal, they say, "Gochisusama deshita," thank you for the meal. These words are more than tradition. They are rituals of mindfulness, of recognizing that food is a gift from the farmer, from the earth, from the cook. This gratitude, this reverence, it changes the way we eat. It transforms eating from an unconscious habit into a spiritual practice. The authors remind us that our relationship with food is our relationship with life. When we eat with attention, we live with intention. Modern diets often teach us to fear food, fear carbs, fear fat, fear flavor. But Okinawans show us something different. They eat with joy. They honor the seasons. They enjoy the colors, the textures, the simplicity. They don't follow rules, they follow wisdom. This is how food becomes fuel, not just for the body, but for the spirit. So what can we learn? You don't have to change everything overnight, but maybe today you eat a little slower. You try a new vegetable. You pause before your first bite. Thank you. You eat until you're 80% full and stop. That's not a diet. That's a way of life, a path to longevity, not through pills or powders, but through presence, patience, and peace at the table. Ikigai, Part 7, Gentle Movements, Longer Life. In most parts of the world, movement has become a task, a checkbox, something we force ourselves to do at the gym, on a treadmill, during a scheduled session. But in Okinawa, movement is not a chore, it's a lifestyle. In this chapter, the authors explore one of the quiet forces behind long life: gentle, continuous movement. Not intense workouts, not grueling routines, just small, natural, meaningful actions done every single day. In Ojimi, people don't stop moving because they age. They age well because they keep moving. They garden, they walk to visit friends, they sweep their porches, they dance at festivals, they squat to sit on tatami mats, they stand to cook, they move with the rhythm of life, not to burn calories, but to live fully. One 98-year-old woman shared, "Every morning I sweep the path to my gate. It keeps my arms strong and my heart light." No trainer, no fitness tracker, just intention and rhythm. The Okinawan lifestyle naturally includes what the modern world calls functional movement. They bend, stretch, reach, lift, walk, and balance without needing structured exercise. Their homes and villages are built in a way that encourages activity. Chairs are low or non-existent. Meals are served on the floor. People get up and down many times a day, keeping their knees and hips strong. There's no sedentary culture. Television is rare, and most of their time is spent outdoors, in fresh air, under the sun. Another key point the authors emphasize is this: movement doesn't have to be intense to be powerful. In fact, many scientific studies now support what Okinawans have lived for generations. Low-intensity, consistent movement helps reduce inflammation, improve heart health, support cognitive function, and slow aging. Even a walk around the garden, a few stretches in the morning, or dancing to a favorite tune can have profound benefits. And when movement is tied to joy, the body responds with energy, not exhaustion. In Okinawa, many elders participate in group dances. They wear traditional kimonos, play instruments, clap, sing, and sway to the rhythm of old folk songs. Their faces light up, their eyes sparkle. This is not a workout, it's a celebration. This kind of movement releases endorphins. It strengthens community. It keeps the mind and body young because it's done with happiness, not pressure. The chapter also touches on something deeper: the relationship between movement and purpose. When you have something to wake up for, someone to care for, something to tend to, you keep moving. And when you keep moving, your health follows. The authors share that one of the greatest dangers to longevity isn't disease, it's inactivity, it's sitting, it's isolation, it's losing the reason to get out of bed. That's why Ikigai and movement are so closely linked. When your life has meaning, you move with purpose. And when you move with purpose, your life continues to grow. The elders of Ojimi aren't focused on steps or calories. They focus on living fully. They listen to their bodies, they rest when tired. But they never stop engaging with life. They're not training for a race. They're preparing for the next garden, the next meal, the next visit with a friend. You don't need a gym to stay healthy. You don't need to lift heavy or run fast. You simply need to move, gently, joyfully, daily. So what can we take from this? Maybe we choose stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe we take a walk after dinner. Maybe we stretch when we wake up instead of scrolling on our phones. Maybe we start to treat movement as something sacred, not stressful. Because it's not about burning fat, it's about fueling life. The Okinawan elders teach us that longevity is built not in years, but in motion. And that every step, every stretch, every simple action done with love adds to our story. As requested, no final conclusion until the last part. Let me know when you're ready for part 8, Resilience and Wabi-Sabi, Embracing Imperfection and Change. Ikigai Part 8, Resilience and Wabi-Sabi, Embracing Imperfection and Change. There's a crack in the bowl, a tear in the cloth, a wrinkle on the hand. In most places, we try to hide them, but in Japan, they are honored. In this chapter, the authors guide us into two deeply connected ideas that shape the way the Japanese, and especially the long-living elders of Okinawa, face life: resilience and wabi-sabi. Let's begin with resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, to face pain without giving up, to keep moving forward even when the road disappears beneath your feet. The elders interviewed by the authors are not strangers to hardship. They have lived through war, poverty, natural disasters, loss, and deep grief. But when they speak, there is no bitterness in their words, only acceptance, only calm. How do they do it? Because they have developed something called emotional flexibility. They don't resist life's changes. They don't fight every storm. They don't pretend everything is perfect. They adapt. They feel. They endure. 101-year-old man shared, "I've seen everything change, my country, my family, my body, but I stay standing like the bamboo. It bends, but it never breaks." That is resilience, not the absence of pain, but the ability to find balance even in the middle of it. And this leads to Wabi-Sabi, a unique Japanese worldview that finds beauty in imperfection, transience, and the natural cycle of growth and decay. Wabi-Sabi teaches us that nothing is ever truly finished, nothing is ever truly flawless, and that's where the beauty lies. A chipped teacup, used for years, is more precious than one that's never been touched. A weathered wooden door with its faded paint tells more stories than a new one. A face with wrinkles speaks of laughter, sorrow, and survival. Wabi-Sabi invites us to slow down, to stop chasing perfection, to embrace the cracks in ourselves and the world. Because imperfection is not a failure, it's a feature of authenticity. The authors describe how many Okinawan elders decorate their homes with simple handmade objects. Nothing flashy, nothing perfect, but everything meaningful. Each item reflects a journey, a moment, a memory. Wabi-Sabi is about seeing the value in what is real, not what is flawless. And this mindset isn't just about objects, it's about ourselves. In the modern world, we are told to hide our scars, to cover our age, to filter our flaws. But the Okinawan way says the opposite. Let life leave its mark. Let time shape you. Let each wrinkle become a story. Let each mistake become a lesson. Because that's what it means to live with grace. Wabi-Sabi teaches us to find peace in the passing seasons. Spring blossoms, summer flourishes, autumn fades, winter sleeps, and then it begins again. This rhythm is also in us. We are always changing, growing, aging, fading, becoming. The elders of Ojimi don't resist this truth. They welcome it. They prepare for it. And in doing so, they become lighter, not weaker. One woman, 99 years old, said, "I used to dance, now I sing. Someday I will only listen. It's all part of the same song. That is resilience. That is wabi-sabi. The strength to keep living, loving, and letting go without fear." The authors gently remind us that Ikigai is not about a perfect life. It's about a deeply lived life. Messy, real, honest, filled with ups and downs, cracks and light. So when something breaks, pause. When something ends, breathe. When something changes, bow, because every broken thing can be mended, and every chapter, however imperfect, is part of your story. Ikigai Part 9, Living with Ikigai, The Journey Within. And so, we arrive at the heart of it all. After all the wisdom shared by elders, after learning about food, movement, resilience, purpose, the final chapter leads us inward, to the one place where Ikigai has always lived, within. The authors call this final part the journey within, because while Ikigai may be visible in traditions, habits, gardens, or shared meals, its roots run deeper, into the soul. Living with Ikigai is not about chasing something far away. It's about returning to yourself, to your core, to the quiet voice inside that says, this is why I'm here. Not to impress, not to compete, but to live with meaning. The people of Okinawa have taught us that Ikigai doesn't have to be something big. It can be small. So small, in fact, that others might not notice it. But you will. A garden, a morning walk, a handmade meal, a song, a child's smile, a story shared with a friend. Your Ikigai is not a job title. It's not an achievement. It's the feeling you get when your actions align with your heart. The authors explain that finding Ikigai is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong journey. A cycle of asking, listening, adjusting, and growing. Some people find their Ikigai in caring for others. Some find it in creating. Some in teaching, building, healing, serving. Some in simply being present. And the beautiful truth is this: there is no right Ikigai. There is only yours. To live with Ikigai is to wake up with intention, to choose presence over pressure, to trust the pace of life, even when it's slow, to make space for what brings you joy, even if it doesn't earn money, attention, or praise. The chapter also reminds us that we don't need to wait for the perfect time. We don't need to have it all figured out. We just need to start with what we have, where we are. One Okinawan elder said, "Every morning I water my flowers. They don't ask why I do it. And I don't either. I just know I must." That is Ikigai. Simple, quiet, clear. The authors encourage us to reflect on a few questions. What do I love? What am I good at? What does the world need from me? And what can I give with joy? These 4 questions form the center of the Ikigai diagram, where passion, mission, profession, and vocation overlap. But even if they don't all align perfectly, even if you only find one small circle of meaning, start there, because even a spark can light the whole heart. Ikigai is also about balance, work and rest, giving and receiving, doing and being. It teaches us to stay curious, to stay kind, to keep learning, to keep loving, and most importantly, to never stop being who you truly are. The long-living people of Okinawa aren't chasing happiness. They're living gently, intentionally. They are part of something greater, a community, a tradition, a rhythm, and that gives them peace. In the end, the authors don't offer a formula. They offer a path, not a highway, but a quiet trail through the garden of your daily life. So maybe today, you take a deep breath, you slow down, you listen, and you ask yourself, not what the world expects, but what gives my life meaning? What lights my heart? What is my Ikigai? You may not find the answer right away, but the moment you begin the search, you've already started living it. In the quiet corners of the world, there are people who live long, beautiful lives, not because they chase more, but because they choose meaning over noise, presence over pressure, and love over fear. That is Ikigai. And now, it lives in you too. Thank you for joining this journey. If you felt inspired, if something touched your heart, share it, like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of purpose, wisdom, and life. Until next time, stay gentle, stay grounded, and keep walking your path with Ikigai.